Welcome to Popcast Deluxe, you think I should up the dose of weekly cultural review. I'm John Caramanica.
I'm Joe Coscarelli.
Lightly slumped this week. I feel like this is going to be a recurring. I hope it's not a recurring.
How's your health?
Sipping on that emergency.
Yeah, not sponsored.
No, not Spawn. Not Spawn. Also, we got 4 different medications off here. So this side is extremely active.
You been eating your apples, John?
I have not, but perhaps later. Perhaps for the snacks.
This could help.
TBD. We're going to get into a few things this week. Should we map out a little bit of where we're going to go?
Yeah, it was kind of a big week and weekend in
news. A lot of newsy stuff
pop culture. Well, real news and pop cultural news.
We're going to talk a little bit about Kim Petras, connected to Dr. Luke and Kesha. We're going to talk about The Idol.
HBO's The Idol.
Max's The Idol is what I think you meant to say. We're going to talk about The Idol, which
biggest show of the summer? Question mark.
Pass. And we both a rare thing happened this week.
Yep.
Which is we both went to a movie. Mm-hmm. You go to more movies than I do, generally speaking, but we both went to a movie and
separately.
It was the same movie.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that.
We separately saw the same film.
So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to get into songs and snacks. Do you like poetry?
I like Instagram captions.
I love Instagram captions.
Yeah.
How many poetry books do you own?
Very few.
Like under 5?
Do zines count?
For these purposes, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe like a dozen.
Okay.
Under a dozen.
Yeah, I think probably I have 10 to 20. I have all the early Pulp 80 poetry books.
Okay.
Probably have some zines. And pretty soon, because I believe it got lost in the mail.
Yeah, ours got lost in the mail.
Definitely got lost in the mail.
Yeah. Titles Ruin Everything by The Boy.
Okay, Titles Ruin Everything. A Stream of Consciousness by Aubrey Graham and Kenza Samir.
Yep.
Available now on DrakeRelated.com.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Spawn for DrakeRelated.com, a place that I have purchased things from in the past.
Yeah.
Off cycle. Sometimes I'll just pop on there and just see what's good.
The stock is huge. Like, did you see like the Hotline Bling pool floaty?
Kind of into it.
Still hanging around.
Also, what I kind of want to get, actually, because I was looking the other day, the So Far Gone refrigerator magnet set with the font. Mm-hmm. Only $8. Pretty affordable.
Much cheaper than the poetry book.
Yeah, that's true. So our copies got lost in the mail, but presumably by next week we will have copies of this. There's also allegedly an album.
Right.
Perhaps in an old Drake mode.
Yes.
We don't know.
I mean,
what's it? It's Monday. There's a lot can happen between now and the end of the week.
Can we run through this like chronologically?
Sure.
Okay. Wake up Saturday morning.
Early afternoon.
Cover of the Post. You open
it's
up.
A wrap.
It's an
advertisement.
It's an advertisement. A wrap.
Advertisement.
The entire New York Times also wrapped. I go downstairs in my elevator
for delivery, for home delivery.
Yeah. So I go down. I live in a building. A lot of Times subscribers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We support you.
We love you all. Just
high fives, handshakes, and hugs. If you meet a Times subscriber in the wild. One of those, depending what they're comfortable with. Yeah. Any of those.
Yeah. Every single issue of the Times covered in a Drake ad for this poetry book.
Yes.
New York Post.
Post subscribers in your building?
No Post subscribers as far as I could tell, but go around the corner of the bodega. There's the ad. Drake, Titles Ruin Everything. Takes a little while, but you realize you open the ad and there's picture of puppy dogs
like an illustration.
Yeah, in the bottom corner. They match the puppy dogs on a hoodie Drake was wearing recently.
Okay.
Which had a phrase on it that is not safe for work.
Wow.
But
Google that.
Yeah, Google that. I believe it starts hard feelings and then there's a comma and a second phrase.
Why is that jacket not on Drake Related? That's all I'm saying. Woodcop.
The puppies have a QR code. You scan the QR code. We're still in the pandemic era. QR wise.
Yeah, you got menus. On there. Yeah.
Takes you to a website first, titlesruineverything.com. First, when I first clicked on the QR code, it was a spinning wheel.
Yeah, sure. Classic.
Couple hours of a spinning wheel.
Classic.
The website was not up yet. Eventually, I was, dutiful reporter. I had some work to do, but I kept an eye on it every half hour, basically assuming it would go live
Refresh
on a round number.
Yeah, sure.
Refresh the page. Eventually, there it is, pops up. It says, Drake says he's also made an album to go along with the book. It's called For All the Dogs, hence the puppies. And it says, they say they miss the old Drake, Girl Don't Tempt Me, which, as we know, is a Drake line. Where is this album?
Truly.
Like, I have no idea.
In the kennel.
I was like, this is what I actually did. I right-clicked. I found the source code for the website.
That's what's... Yeah, y'all weren't ready for that.
Scrolled the
Joey
whole thing.
Blogs is coming for you.
Found every URL. There's buried in that website, there's a photo of Drake and Turks and Caicos.
Nice.
Which I know because that's the name of the file.
Yep.
Turks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Whatever. No album to be found. No one knows when this album's coming out. We don't know. There had been rumors in the days prior that Drake had maybe held an album because his friend and collaborator, Young Thug, currently incarcerated in Georgia, put out Business is Business on Friday. This is an album that features Drake twice.
Of old Thug verses.
Of old-ish Thug verses. There's some
confusion.
Yeah, some question, I think. Some of the songs definitely old. Old Young Thug leaks. Thug, tweeted, which I don't,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Saying that one of the songs was, from many years ago. You listened to the album?
I listened to parts of it. The parts of it that I listened to did not sound new.
Right.
So,
right.
I guess I'm given to think that if there was new stuff, it would have been at the top. I don't think the new song would have been track 12. It might have been the last track, but it's either the first three or the last one. That's it.
Okay. How closely did you listen to the first song? Because I think it's possible
that there's some new stuff
on there.
That there's some new stuff on there. Yes. It did feel a little bit like Stopped Clock is Right Twice a Day.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
Where if you have enough Young Thug verses in the can, which undoubtedly there are hundreds of Young Thug verses in various cans, thousands, you can probably find one that's
alluding to being
thematically on point.
Incarcerated.
That's kind of how it felt to me.
But audio-wise, okay, so the first song, Parade on Cleveland, features Drake, is about Young Thug returning home, specifically to Cleveland Ave, street in Atlanta that he's closely associated with. The song is interrupted by a jail call from Thug to Drake. You hear the audio. This is a call from the Cobb County facilities, whatever. Drake takes it. And then from there, they have a little conversation. It sounds, like a jail phone.
Yep.
To accept this call, press 0. To refuse this call, hang up or press 1.
Yo, what's up, my brother?
What's up, my brother? Talk to me. What's the word?
And then from there, it goes into the Thug verse. And that Thug verse, again, I don't know. There have been no clear answers on this. Nobody's answering, whether this is a new verse or an old verse. But to my ear, it sounds different than the rest of the verses on the album. Like it could have been put onto a beat after the fact.
We'll find out.
Eventually.
We'll find out eventually. There's obviously a long history of hip-hop albums and other albums, primarily hip-hop albums recorded in jail with either, smuggled equipment or payphone calls. There's a rapper in the Bay Area, X-Rated, who made a whole career of this in the 90s and the 2000s. It wouldn't be totally unheard of. I do think, given the fact that the trial is yet to get on, it maybe not the smartest thing if it feels bad.
Yeah.
There was some trial news this week.
Yeah.
And in terms of they're not going to seat the jury, it doesn't seem like until September. And I don't know if you were, we can only speculate, but would that be the wisest move for someone who is facing trial to sort of taunt everybody by saying, hey, I got away with recording a song.
Right, which is why I think we're not likely to get a straight answer. So we can only pick up on clues. And there are a lot of clues out there regarding how Thug feels about various things in this
There
trial.
were a lot of, and also leaked phone calls.
Tweets, versus family members. I mean, this trial has just been a mess throughout. I think I last wrote about it in January. We are now in June. In January was when jury selection began for a trial that is slated to last between 6 and 9 months once it gets going.
And no one's been seated yet, correct?
And there are no jurors
Right.
yet. We are now almost in July. They've said it's unlikely anything's going to start in July, August, maybe September if they're lucky. You know, Thug is filing motion after motion, trying to get certain evidence thrown out, certain charges. The defendants have dwindled from like more than a dozen who would all be tried together to now it's fewer than 10. I think various people taking pleas, having their cases split off. This is just not only in music, but I think in criminal trials in general, like this is extremely a unique case and will continue to be. So we'll see how Thug's career and legal situation unfold in the coming months.
Maybe let's jump to some other legal news. This is it's been a busy week. Finally there was resolution in the ongoing saga between Dr. Luke and Kesha. Big picture, Kesha accused Dr. Luke of sexual abuse as part of a contract lawsuit. That lawsuit was eventually thrown out a few years ago. Luke countersued. That case has been ongoing. Everything has been settled now. We don't know the terms of the settlement. Is that correct?
Correct.
We just know there are matching or complementary statements that were put out. Everybody's moving on with their lives, so on and so forth. Were you surprised that this is how this ended? Because I know you've been following this for a very long time.
Yeah, this case has been ongoing for almost 10 years now. I think 2014. The event in question, the assault that Kesha claimed over the years, is almost 20 years
From
old
like
at this
05
point.
or
From
06.
2005, yeah. And I never thought this case was going to trial. You just don't often see a trial between two figures of this magnitude, given what comes out in legal papers. I mean, already this case has been a huge, dumping ground for emails and contracts and correspondence and affidavits that famous people don't generally want anyone to see.
Sure.
And that only increases when you think about one or both of them and their associates taking the stand in a trial in Manhattan. Like this would, you do everything in your power to not go through something like this, I think, from both sides. But they had painted each other into a corner where I think, Kesha made this claim before Me Too. This was, put her entire career at risk. This is the person who she'd made all her biggest hits with over the years. She was never gonna come out and say, I take it back, because it came, I think, to represent and mean so much to her and her fans. Luke denied it from day one.
Steadfastly.
Was never gonna,
and also in the statement,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken, also repeated his denial.
Yeah, I mean, so that was interesting. So,
Yeah.
I saw it when everybody else did on Instagram. They both posted it simultaneously, I think on Thursday. Their statements are presented together where Kesha says, I don't remember everything that happened that night. And Luke says, well, I do. And this never happened.
Right.
Again, I think this has been a huge part of both of their lives for more than a decade, basically.
Yeah.
The obvious ill will and alleged abuse between the two of them. It's become the subject of most of Kesha's work. She put out an album a couple weeks ago called Gag Order, seemed to allude to this case.
Sure.
She continues to release music through her contracts with him because she was never released from them. I just think, it's what else are you going to do but move on at this point? I think
Just
there was
out-
nothing left to gain for
Although,
either of
just
them.
out of curiosity, why do you think that there was never a settlement at any point that included releasing Kesha from her contractual obligations? Even if there was a behind-the-scenes payment or so on and so forth, the idea that somehow was a bridge that could not be crossed, that always seemed vexing to me on both parties. I would think that would be the number one thing that both parties would want to absolutely make sure happen. In your reporting over the years, did you ever get a sense of why that somehow remained a sticking point?
I think it's possible that Dr. Luke and his camp felt that by granting Kesha the original thing she was asking for, that it would somehow be admitting
admission.
guilt.
Yeah.
I think they claimed from the beginning that the allegation of abuse, both verbal and sexual, was a scare tactic to, that they were basically dangling it even before they filed the lawsuit, saying, you better let her out of these contracts. The other thing that I think is crucial to note here is that Kesha was signed to Dr. Luke in a variety of ways. She had a label deal with him, a songwriting deal with him, and a production deal with him. So it was basically like, and this is fairly common, especially for artists who are signed when they're young. I think she was 18 when he discovered her. They were always going to be linked, and for him to relinquish all of those business connections between the two of them, I think would, again, from him and his lawyer's perspective, was just giving her what she had asked for from the beginning. And I think it seemed non-negotiable. And the fact that he was chasing a defamation case for this long, there was a single-minded aim to erase this,
to be absolved.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think the thing that changed recently is that when this case first was going through the court system, it was ruled that Dr. Luke was not, in fact, a public figure. And so then the bar for proving defamation is lower for a non-public figure. That ruling was recently overturned by an appeals court, which ruled that, in fact, he is a public figure and that he would have to prove actual malice in the defamation case, which raises the bar. And I mean, frankly, made it less likely that he would win at trial.
So this is, you think, his team
that moves it closer to a realm where a settlement makes sense for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other wrinkle in this is that for a while, Dr. Luke had a case to present that Kesha's accusations ruined his career.
Sure. Now Dr. Luke is...
So we should talk about this.
Yeah, I mean...
There were years when he was quiet.
Yeah, and I was looking back. So there were years he was quiet, or was he?
And then there were years where he was a little bit quiet, but working under pseudonyms.
So I was looking back. I want to read something.
Yeah.
So I was looking back at my review of Kim Petras's Clarity.
Not her debut album, if you believe the labels.
Not a real album.
We'll get into this.
Kim Petras's Clarity, which came out in July or in summer of 2019. I forget if it was June or July.
I remember this being sticky at the time.
This was a real problem.
Yeah.
I before we published this piece, I made a lot of phone calls. I applied a decent amount of pressure.
Journalistically.
Yes, of course. Here's what I wrote. Each song includes a production credit for an entity called Made in China, which has been presumed to be an alias for Dr. Luke. Linda Carbone, a publicist who represents Petras and Dr. Luke, said that Made in China is a producing alias of Clint Gibbs, who has been the chief studio engineer for Dr. Luke. I'm going to go ahead and call BS on that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, here we are 4 years later. I think we can safely call BS on this.
Yep.
Publicists lie.
Yep.
They defend their clients.
Yep.
That's a thing that happens.
Yes.
We'll never know for certain, but this feels materially false in the rear view, especially.
And it's basically...
At the time, it felt false.
Right. You knew...
Which is why I phrased it
yes.
the way I phrased it.
Yes. Now,
this is not fact. This is a publicist statement.
it's basically taken as fact across the trade publications in the music industry
That Luke produced these records.
that Luke produced these records, that Made in China was always Dr. Luke, that Tyson Tracks
Yes.
is Dr. Luke.
Yes.
He was nominated for Grammys under these names. He used these names in work with Kim Petras, but also in work with Doja Cat
Yes.
and various other artists. And then eventually, I think it's important to sort of take back to 2016, 2017. Like, the music industry was behind Kesha in a very strong way.
Absolutely. Like it was so again, this is pre Me Too in the classic sense, in what it became.
Though it dovetailed into
it
Me
ends
Too.
up dovetailing with it, but it became truly a cause celeb. Taylor Swift donated money to Kesha's legal fees. It was very big on Twitter.
Yes.
It was
Free Kesha.
Yeah.
Was the hashtag.
This was a point of conversation, and it seemed to crystallize a lot of things that people dislike and mistrust about how pop music gets made.
Male Svengali producers.
Svengali's controlling female pop stars or aspiring female pop stars and molding them into certain shapes, often against their will.
Yep.
The Kesha claim, especially if you think about how Kesha was being presented when in her early career,
Party girl. Mess.
outside, heavy outside. Is that marketing? Is that someone telling her to be like that? Is that a trauma response to being controlled? Tough to know. And in the rear view, I'm sure we'll hear more from Kesha over the coming months and years about that. But
Or we won't, depending on what's in that settlement.
we don't know what the settlement's. Sure, fair. But to your point, 2016. This was emphatically, Dr. Luke was in the doghouse.
And I was going through the clips. I mean, Adele, Miley Cyrus, Kelly Clarkson, almost all powerful female musicians, but only female musicians were really Lady Gaga, lining up behind.
To drag him. And to call into question Luke's integrity and say we don't know exactly what happened here, but maybe he did something else that was unpleasant, or maybe he spoke in an unpleasant manner.
Right.
And these were things like
there was a huge groundswell. I mean, I remember interviewing Pink 5 or so years back, and I asked her about it because she had worked with Dr. Luke back in the day. And, she said that, I'm paraphrasing, but that she didn't know anything about what happened between him and Kesha, but that she knew that he was an unpleasant person and, blah, 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 and he deserved what he got, basically. She minced no words in sort of saying, I'll never work with him again for XYZ reasons. And there was a fair amount of this.
And that's even in sort of the worst moments of the music business. I feel like that's very rare. Like, even if you think of someone like Chris Brown, who has done, he documented, assaulted, like, people are not going on the record to say, I won't work with Chris Brown, or we know Chris. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I feel like the particular vigor and vitriol that was aimed at Dr. Luke was, to me, novel. I hadn't seen anything like that.
And at the same time, if you look at the flip side, Kesha became a sort of inspirational figure, a symbol for being a survivor. There's the big Grammys performance in the year of, women need to stand up, and she's, surrounded by other stars in white, and she's singing, this ballad sort of about pushing through, and it seems like she's becoming a more serious artist, while Dr. Luke is, and the version of her, the sort of superficial, bubbly, fizzy, fun version of her is being pushed to the side for this more weighty, mature artist, singer-songwriter. And Dr. Luke is being completely shunned. And then that sort of fades.
Yeah, and I wonder the degree to which it was ever truly the case.
Right.
But if you look at the career of Doja Cat, you look at the career of Kim Petras, these are the two primary pop stars who have worked with Dr. Luke in the last 7 or 8 years. but their work goes back to the mid 2010s. It kind of goes back, even dare I say, before this Kesha breakthrough.
Yeah,
moment.
he was incubating these artists as his
Absolutely.
next generation.
Yes.
And even someone like Nicki Minaj began working with Dr. Luke again. They had a #1 hit with Super Freaky Girl, which like we don't like to talk about, but like that happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Luke's name is back in the credits. Luke's artists are at the top of the charts. They're
And just talk a little bit
at the
about
Grammys.
Luke. Let's talk about Luke in the 2000s, though. Katy Perry,
Lady Gaga, Kelly Clarkson, you know, just as big got. Centrist, big tent, pop music.
Yes.
The major key, 4 on the floor, hands in the air. Like that's Dr. Luke and that's Max Martin, who was doing it first. Luke sort of comes along, reinvigorates Max's career. They have this reign together. And then things change, and things change on the radio.
Part of it is the change on the radio, right? And also part of it is, you know, maybe you get one era or you get one bump, but you might not get a second or a third. So some of it might be cyclical. But I do think on a fundamental level, radio moved away. And I think probably the generation of artists that he helped incubate wanted new things. And it maybe took some time to find the next generation of artists. But he did find that next generation of artists while he was in the doghouse.
He sort of, what's interesting
pop is ruthless.
Yeah, and he waited out the pendulum swing away from this sort of happy-go-lucky dance pop sound. You know, then we have this downer moment of, you know, the Lords and the Billie Eilishes and the Post Malones of the world.
And even Drake as a pop star. That's not a Luke thing at all.
At all. And then here we are, and the pendulum has arrived right back on time. And like, I'm not going to say that the legal maneuvering is following this trend, but like it makes sense that now would be the moment where Luke could say, all right, time to get back to work because the world is ready for me all over again.
Right. Although he's been back to work. I mean, we want to emphasize this. He's been back to work.
Yes. At the same time, Kesha, her last album, I mean, this is like Gag Order debuted in the 180s on the Billboard 200. Like, this is someone with multiple #1 hits, platinum albums. This album sold, you know, a fraction of what the Boy Genius album sold, which is like that's a startling number.
Sure.
So, and then there's Kim Petras.
There's Kim Petras. There is a new Kim Petras album, cheekily titled
"Feed the Beast." It's a funny title.
It is a funny title. So Kim Petras, I guess this is her debut album. These are not real.
This is her third debut album.
These are not real terms. What I will say, I feel like the energy around this album is not that positive. I prefer Clarity vastly. And the reason I prefer Clarity is that album to me is experimental, but big tent. This album is big tent first. And it's not to say there's no little da-da-da here and there, but it's one thing when you are playing with the structures of pop music, but you're gifted in the kind of bones. So even when at your most kind of unusual or unexpected, you're still like, you know how to craft this thing. And Dr. Luke, whatever his foibles may be, does understand that. So an eccentric Kim Petras album is still a very sturdy pop album. But if you're shooting to make a sturdy pop album first, you're liable to sandpaper down your eccentricities. And that's kind of what I feel on this album. And I feel like the general energy is that this is a less successful Kim Petras album.
Or is it more successful but less artistically successful? That's the aim, right? Like,
well, I mean, this is why we should talk about Unholy.
Yes. So maybe just do a little bit on the first version of Kim Petras. Like, other than the music, like what was she bringing to the table?
Okay, so a couple things. One, Kim Petras is one of the first, if not the first, transgender pop stars. you can't talk about Kim Petras without at least situating her in that context.
Yes.
One of the things that I found interesting about early Kim Petras, and this is sort of kind of in parallel with like the PC music era and so on and so forth, there are people making pop music, not popular music, but pop music
As a genre.
right? That is eccentric, playful, off-kilter, funhouse mirror, hyper-referential, like pastiche, pop music as source material for a kind of radical rethinking of what contemporary pop should sound like. Now, that said, I would say we're in an era where popular music isn't that pop, but it's like the Dua Lipa album existed.
Right. It's sort of been
pretty
creeping back.
Right, and it's pretty straightforward. Like it's not that narratively or creatively exciting. It's just a successful pop record. There was a moment, I think, in the mid 2010s where you're like, PC music, Kim
It's like a
Petras,
post Lady Gaga thing, a little bit.
but even more so because Lady Gaga thinned it out really fast. I
Yeah.
think there was this hope that I think one or more people from that orbit might end up being Katy Perry level, Britney Spears level.
Charlie XCX.
Next week on Popcast, Joe will be hosting that episode.
I will not.
But there was hope that someone from that orbit would become a true A-lister.
It's a meta pop star becoming a real pop star. It's sort of the promise, right?
And it never happened. If it didn't happen with Clarity, again, a legitimately great album, it probably wasn't going to happen. And so I think what it leaves...
Sorry, it was an independent mixtape.
I'm going to look at all the cameras right now. We know you're lying. All of y'all are lying.
Publicist, stop lying to us.
Stop lying. Seriously, stop lying. We know. We know you're lying. Stop. This album feels like the kind of album you make when you say the only path left.
F it.
Right. We tried to do it the kind of idiosyncratic way. Now let's try to do it the Big Tent way. But the problem is when you do it the Big Tent way, you automatically leave your eccentricities at the door. You leave your unusual perspective, your unexpected frissons. All that stuff gets left at the door. And then it's raw competition. Is the song big enough? Is it as big as a Dua Lipa song? Is it? And in this case, I think probably not.
And in between, we get Unholy. Grammy Award winning duet with Sam Smith.
Is it weird to admit I don't hate this song as much as
Yes.
other people hate it?
Yes. I think it's an affront to a lot of things, but especially to a well-crafted, perfect pop song. It's like, it's supposed to sound like Britney Spears, I guess, but like, how dare you? You know
Is
what I
it
mean?
supposed to sound like Britney Spears?
You don't think so? Just like the robotic sort of
Sounds like Enigma.
yeah, it does sound like Enigma. Look, I mean, Unholy was huge.
So it's a rough song.
Debuted at #1 on the charts.
Yeah, it's a rough song. Also, I think the Kim Petras part in Unholy is not particularly Kim Petrasy.
Right.
Or Kim, or as Nicki Minaj puts it, Kim Petty-ish.
Kim Petty-ish.
It's not very Kim Petty-ish.
She basically agreed, I think, beginning with this song, to sublimate herself in service of transcending levels, right? Making it.
Was it worth it?
I mean, I do think the best criticism written about this is that tweet.
in Case Piece.
I mean, I had favorited this tweet
It's a great
originally.
tweet. It's a really good tweet.
I believe it's an incredible tweet. Kim Petras profiled in a recent issue of The New Yorker.
Yes.
By Khalifa Sane. Great piece, interesting piece about this very thing. Feed the Beast, the album title,
Yes.
is allegedly what was told to her by a label person. You know, this is a classic story. You got to feed the beast. So first, Kim Petras stans are known as bunheads, which
that's
not the real bunheads.
no. That's I found that I find that challenging. Bunheads, an incredible television show, ABC Family, one season, cruelly canceled.
Amy Sherman Palladino Hive.
Sutton Foster Hive. Seriously.
Yeah.
If you're not spending free time looking up old photos of Sutton Foster and Bobby Cannavale, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Literally the only good thing to do on like a random Tuesday night. So like, I'm just saying, Sutton Foster Hive, big Bunheads gang over here. Kim Petras fan for sure, but big Bunheads gang.
So one Bunhead at Sean BG posted a response to Unholy on Twitter and wrote, Kim Petras has such an inspiring story, releasing some of the highest quality pop songs in the world for about 3 years to the warm approval of me and 7 other gay guys, then becoming world famous trailblazer for the worst song ever made. Which, like, you can't have gay male pop stans if you don't sometimes want to get read like that. You know what I mean? It's like, it comes with the territory.
Yes, and even as a person who is lightly tolerant of Unholy, I am fully on board with the sentiment of that tweet. Unholy, maybe the biggest crime of Unholy is it didn't do for Kim Petras what it was supposed to do, which is catapult her into the A-list.
Right. I mean, she wins a Grammy. She gets to,
A lot of people win Grammys.
But not a lot of trans people. She's the first trans singer to ever, out trans singer to ever win a Grammy. And it sets the table for this album. But then this album arrives. There's a few other singles. There's Coconuts. It's like,
it's not it.
It's not quite there. And like, did any of this album work for you?
I think it worked for me more than it worked for most of the people that I was reading tweets from or reviews from.
Yeah.
But again, one of the things I like so much about early Kim Petras is I felt like I never knew what was like lurking around any corner.
Mm-hmm.
Like minute 3 of a song could be totally different than minute 2.
Mm-hmm.
There were unexpected choices. And one thing about Kim Petras, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more, truly a student, like a real student of big tent pop throughout the decades. We happen to be in a moment in pop music that is highly studious, lazy studious, but still studious nonetheless. The way that studiousness was deployed on the earlier records was clever, fresh, unexpected. The way it's deployed on this record it feels ham-handed.
I mean, Alone, the follow-up single to Unholy with Nicki Minaj, built around Alice DJ, Better Off Alone. It's too dumb.
It's
right?
obvious.
It's
right.
too
not
dumb.
right. Not. And again, I like plenty of dumb records.
Right.
It's just it feels like it's dumb without a point.
Yeah.
It's dumb without a twist.
Yes.
And I think it's okay to have dumb pop. I prefer it with a twist. Or I prefer it from artists who, if you're going to make dumb records, who never had a twist before. This is where the Dua Lipa, like, Karen and I disagree about Dua Lipa a lot. Like, to me, like, there's no twist in that music, but it's sort of okay because that's not really what Dua Lipa.
And it's a very high quality in and of itself.
Yes.
It's polished. I mean, look, I think it's safe to say we are not the target demo for a Kim Petras album. It might be playing in spaces where we don't spend a lot of time. It might be getting its best burn at parties we're not invited to.
Invite us to the party. Wait, who's not inviting us to parties?
I'm just putting it out there. Just
who's
maybe.
Not inviting us? Are you not inviting us to parties? No. Undo that. Invite us. Invite us. We'll be there.
But
if you want me and Joe to pull up to the function,
where the Kim Petras album is being played,
popcastnytimes.com.
Yeah, but what I want out of an album like this is hits. And I think, like, if you're trying so baldly to give us hits
and failing
and there's no hits, Sex Talk on this album, I'm like, all right, this is a catchy song. Like, I like this song. I could listen to it. Does it sound a little too much like Carly Rae Jepsen? Am I just going to go listen to Emotion? Probably.
Speaking of no hits. Sorry.
But it's a hit. It's a hit man K. Like, if we're gonna pretend like it's sort of a hit. I mean, all right. Here's the real thing. If fictional pop stars are writing better meta pop songs than the real meta pop star,
okay. So this is
your Kim Petras review of Clarity.
This is where we bring this up. Okay.
Closes with an important note, I think.
Yes. So that album came out a few weeks after the Miley Cyrus / Ashley O episode of Black Mirror.
Yes.
And I draw an explicit parallel in this review between what Kim Petras is trying to do and the sort of like pointed falsity yet catchiness of the Ashley O single On a Roll, which, speaking of pop songs sampling other pop songs, very prescient, or interpolating big pen pop song. 9 Inch Nails had like a hole, for better or worse, that's a pop song.
Yeah.
I was there, it's like,
yeah.
Even though it was on TBT, like that's still a pop song. It's a big record. It's a big MTV record. Ashley O was early, team early.
I mean, and On a Roll holds up.
Should we listen? I feel like we should listen.
We should play a little bit of Ashley O.
On a Roll.
On a Roll.
Oh, honey, you know we just can't lose. Yeah, I can't take it, so don't you fake it. I know your love's my destiny. Yeah, I can't take it, please demonstrate it, 'cause I'm going down in history. Hey, I'm on a roll.
That was also on my songs list, I think, for 2019.
As it should be.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2023, and we have On a Roll Part 2.
Well, I do want to say I did re-watch that Black Mirror episode this morning when I was having some trouble sleeping. I did watch that re-watch that Black Mirror. It's better than The Idol.
Ooh, okay. All right. So we're going to get to The Idol.
Yeah.
The On a Roll update I was referring to, of course, World Class Sinner, better known as I'm a Freak,
Just a freak. Yeah.
as sung by Jocelyn or
Diane. TBD. Do you think we get the full Diane version
next week?
next week?
Maybe.
Final episode. Also, 6 episodes, 5. Like, very strange. Did you get to the bottom of
I
this?
got to the bottom of this.
Okay.
Okay. We haven't talked about The Idol since the premiere.
Yes. I mean, we've talked about it.
We've talked about it.
But we haven't.
We haven't popcasted about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The Idol, Sam Levinson, Abel Tesfaye, Twisted Minds, The Weeknd, Lily Rose Depp stars as Jocelyn, the troubled pop star.
No, she's a human being.
No, she's a pop star. She's a human being, or she's a star, but not both.
Or not either.
Yeah. We're now, episode 4 aired last night. We're 1 episode away from the finale. I was told by HBO today.
Okay.
I asked specifically, a lot of people thought this was going to be 6 episodes. They said when the show was reimagined, which means reshot, it switched from 6 episodes to 5, meaning the finale coming up on Sunday, meaning The Idol will be over maybe forever.
Likely forever?
What is the legacy of The Idol?
Joe, I'm not a shrinking violet.
I know.
I'm not.
I know. You're a little bit prudish.
Not in those, like, I don't like horror
Right.
films.
Right.
But, like, I'm not a shrinking, not in this kind of way.
Yep.
I watch this show. I feel complicit. Like,
Which I think is the point.
sure, okay.
I'm just saying.
Feeling complicit with bad acts or with bad television, which is the point exactly. I'm struggling in an ongoing way with the show.
Yeah.
I'm struggling narratively. I'm struggling psycho-spiritually.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're going to touch on subject matter like this, the darker stuff, there's got to be philosophical, emotional payoff
Yep.
attached to it, or narrative power. And I often feel like the most extreme acts on this show are the most disconnected from narrative.
I'm only thinking of Troye Sivan with the electrical collar. A scene that goes on for a really long time.
Really, a lot of scenes go on for. This is another
Yes.
thing. A lot of scenes go on for a really long time.
Yes.
Is that like a shooting budget thing? Like, what is that? Cramming a lot of exposition. Also, on episode 4, Destiny in the bathroom, literally just doing pure exposition
Mhm.
like 3 different times?
Mhm.
Like, is that just because those scenes weren't shot and they just had to be like talked through? Like, what was going on?
Destiny, highlight of the show.
Sure. Yeah.
Troye Sivan,
Really good.
really good.
Really good.
Beautiful voice.
Actually, not beautiful.
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
that wasn't a beautiful gown.
No.
Actually,
Beautiful
great
voice. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
plot
great-
line in the
yeah,
show.
great voice.
My big disconnect is like the show is at least 2 shows, maybe it's more. The industry satire continues to work for me. I think if it leans into that part, Jocelyn doing the I'm going to sell my trauma so my tour sales go up.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
do it on Instagram Live. My friends are going to like be on the other side of the camera
Right.
as I'm bawling, like watching me perform
Mhm.
this trauma. Like some of this stuff
Really happens.
real,
what did I text you at the end of episode 3?
What did you text me?
Is this show a comedy?
Right.
I think if you were to retake the entire show,
Yep.
same script,
Yep.
but play it for farce,
Yep.
you might have something.
And I think they are trying at moments to play it for farce. But I think the cult stuff, it doesn't quite look. Abel Tesfaye the Weeknd, he's really trying something here. This is a very, very, very high wire act, difficult performance for a first time actor.
You're
be
saying
able-
he's trying something as an actor that's high wire, or he's trying something as a creator?
Both, and I want to get to the second
Okay.
part.
Okay.
But I think this performance where he has to both be a pure villain, a master manipulator, you like the karate scene, a cult leader, but also be a clown. Like the show often wants you to know that he's silly, and we've seen
Yeah,
this
but-
after the fact.
But it's weird how that's become the kind of central part of the discourse, and I feel
Yes.
like the reason that has been been made the central part of the discourse is to distract from some of the structural issues of the show itself. If you're arguing about whether Tedros is a clown or he's serious, if he's like a sick cult leader
Yeah.
or he's a fool, if you're arguing about that, you're not focused on the narrative stuff. You're not focused on are they over sexualizing Jocelyn on the television show
Within the show, yeah.
right? Like you're not focused on those other things. You're sort of focused on this kind of it's almost like a point of order rather than like a narrative thing.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is it would take a really incredible actor to be able to pull off both at the same time, which is what the show needs to function on.
Or it needs 10 episodes, or it needs more breathing room to
Right.
allow that.
Yeah, so all the cult stuff feels forced, it feels rushed, but I want to talk specifically as we deal in these issues about like a pop star and a meta pop star and what they're thinking. Like this show has taken The Weeknd off his square in a really interesting way.
Mhm.
He spends all these years building up all this cultural capital to be able to both be a shrouded, mysterious, subversive pop singer and perform at the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Cash that in to then be an actor and a creator of an HBO show
Mhm.
with the biggest HBO
Showrunner
of the day. And you can see him basically feeling the reaction in real time. If you take a scroll through his Twitter feed,
of the day.
he's interacting with every fan, people making fun of him, people praising him. He's retweeting obscure statistics
He
about
also
how well the show
retweeted
is
the
doing.
official Twitter TV account, which don't do that.
That
Don't do that. You
He's-
can do a lot of things.
he's giving interviews left and right after
Very-
the show airs,
Mhm.
which is very out of character for
Yeah,
someone who, as
sure.
you know, you chased around for many years
Yeah.
trying to get him to
it
do
was just,
press.
it feels like a scramble.
It feels like a scramble. He really wants people to know that they know that this character is goofy, but he's over explaining.
And also it's if you have to continue to repeat the point, it's because the thing itself is not successfully communicating the thing that you think it should be communicating. Now, obviously, everyone who's watching, or the vast majority of people who are watching, could not get it or be wrong, but you don't want to be misconstrued en masse.
Right.
And But again, that misconstrual, that should number one tell you something about what's happening on the screen. And if that many people are misconstruing it, it's not a misconstrual.
Or it is, but you have to let it play out. Like the thing that they keep saying over and over again is that they're doing Verhoeven, right? If it's Starship Troopers or it's Showgirls, both of those movies outlasted people saying this is dumb or this doesn't get it, what it's doing, or this is only the text. I don't. I'm saying that that's what they think it is, but a Verhoeven film could stand on its own, both as entertainment and as satire, and eventually the reputation
be understood as that.
Caught up to it.
Right.
But the weekend piece of it is interesting because he's playing with his mystique in the show itself.
Yeah.
He's risking it all, really. And then it's not being received as he wants it to, and then he's further shooting holes into the mystique. Like, can The Weeknd come back and sing dark, brooding, sexy, mysterious songs after this performance? And I mean performance in the most general sense.
That's interesting because I think perhaps the only thing that's genuinely available to him right now is that, the most shrouded version. The only real option in front is to re-shroud. That's how it feels. It doesn't feel like that's off the table. If anything, it feels like that's the only play left.
He's just given so much of himself to try to make this show work, and I just don't think it's working for most people.
It's also baffling, like, if you want to talk about the Tedros character, what's happening as far as, like, can Tedros make hits? Like, let's entertain that.
Sure.
Right? What's baffling to me, The Weeknd got successful making atypical hits.
Mm-hmm.
Submersed,
Mm-hmm.
aquatic, dark, minor key, brooding, gauche, vulgar. Right?
Yeah.
That was a Weeknd hit.
Yeah.
In the context of the show, that's sort of what he's doing with Jocelyn.
Fill the Void or whatever that one is.
Right. It's like he's doing these records that are kind of like anti-pop records. Those records are the least successful records on the show. Like whatever Moses Sumney is doing, whatever Susanna Son is doing, those people seem like the musical talents. And I don't know if the narrative of the show is like that's where the real talent is and Jocelyn, we're exposing Jocelyn. It doesn't feel that way. What it feels like is they are trying to make Jocelyn an interesting pop star, which The Weeknd 1.0 was, trying to make Jocelyn that. But in the context of the show, it's a failure. Mm-hmm. And actually the thing that's a success in the show for Jocelyn, which is the dumb song that happens at the beginning.
No song has topped World Class Sinner.
No.
And that's supposed to be the punchline.
Right. That's the punchline, but that's the best song on the show. And they're giving it to Diane, a.k.a. Jenny.
Right. From Blackpink.
Right. And so it's baffling to me if the through line conversation about pop stardom, if Tedros is like this messianic figure about how to like rescue someone from all the gloss and all the falsity and like restore truth, if that's the narrative, the song should be way better.
Right. But if that's the narrative, it also doesn't track with what Abel Tesfaye keeps telling us, which is that Tedros is actually a clown.
Right.
And
you can't have both.
Right.
It's like the problem is he's a clown, but he's a messiah, and you're supposed to take him seriously as both at the same time.
Right.
And that's really, really hard to do. And also there's a number of like, we talked a minute ago about how long some of these scenes are. A lot of those scenes that are long are Tedros talking about music.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, there's some part of me that like when he's talking about music, I'm kind of like, yeah,
sure.
I kind of mess with that.
Yeah.
That's basically right.
Yeah.
That's cool. But then the music that comes out of that is not the right music. And the minute I take him seriously as someone who might be able to deliver something, he's walking around in shorts and slippers and, like
doing karate.
Yeah. And where are we landing here?
Yeah.
Really, really struggle.
The last thing I'll say about The Weeknd is playing The Weeknd's music over the show where The Weeknd is playing not The Weeknd doesn't add up.
No,
Like
it's
I
like the thing we
can't.
talked about a couple weeks ago with like the Jay Dilla posthumous record where someone's like rapping about Jay Dilla being dead. It's like you can't do everything.
It breaks the fourth wall in an
Yeah.
uncomfortable way. Although I will say I liked the John Lennon cover, like the Jealous Guy Weekend cover, like
Sure.
pretty good. But save it for the credits. Like, don't play it over the show itself, because then you're scrambling my brain about, is this The Weeknd or is it not? Before we go on the Idol, what do you think of Mike Dean?
Mike Dean is in on the joke, but I don't think the joke is real.
Okay, say one more note on that.
I think Mike Dean,
Producer for Kanye,
Yes.
Travis Scott.
longtime Houston engineer turned producer, very signature figure of the last like 5 to 10 years in hip hop production.
Loves weed.
Who can say? Mike Dean does a good job of playing a version of Mike Dean who sees the ridiculousness in the room.
Yes.
But I also see the part of Mike Dean that sees the ridiculousness in the show.
Yes. Wow. There's the one reaction shot of him. Like, and this is true. It's like you talk about the Idol as comedy. Like, the most successful scenes have been the ones that are super ridiculous, and you're like, am I supposed to know this is ridiculous? And then they cut to Rachel Sennett, and she makes a face, and you're like, okay, we're all in on the same joke.
Yeah.
And Mike Dean has one of those in the studio while Jocelyn is, orgasming on the microphone. And that really works, but it's too few and far between.
Yeah. Here's my last question about the Idol.
Yep.
Who's gonna die on the finale?
I think Tedros.
If there's no more Idol, Tedros. If there is more Idol, like Xander?
No, save Xander. He doesn't deserve
Rachel
this.
Sennett?
No, leave these people alone.
I'm not
These
advocating
assistants are not being paid enough
to die.
to die.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm just very simply saying that I think that that's a possibility.
Yeah. I guess we're gonna see Jocelyn come into her own, but I don't know in what way.
Yeah, because they tease it a tiny bit,
Yeah.
but like she doesn't seem to do that much about it apart from call her ex,
Yeah.
who then gets placed in a compromising position by Xander, who has been wiped clean by Tedros.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm good. I think we could stop. I'm
All
just
right.
like, and you can keep that part too. Like I'm just like I'm at
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah. There was a lighter watch this weekend.
Much lighter.
Much lighter.
Although
The lightest of all watches.
I'm not gonna lie. I was lightly traumatized by this film.
Okay.
No hard feelings.
No hard
Unlike
feelings.
Drake, hard feelings.
Hi. Mind if I touch your wiener?
What?
Your dog.
His parents hired me to bring him out of his shell before college.
We've just been so worried about our son.
Hi.
Am I allowed to be here?
So this film is Jennifer Lawrence playing a woman in desperate need to save her family's home. Needs to get a car. In order to get a car, agrees to date the son of a wealthy family out in the Hamptons somewhere.
So when you say date him, do you mean date him or date him?
Yes.
Date him. Date him hard.
I'll date his brains out.
Hijinks ensue. I never felt comfortable once watching the interactions between the two of them.
Okay. Between her and the teenage boy.
Yeah, it wasn't sold in a way that felt compelling to me.
I mean, this movie was a rare movie that was pre-canceled.
Oh, was it? I don't even know.
Yeah,
about
this
that.
was a big dialogue when
I missed that.
when the trailer came out.
Because why? Because of that?
Yeah, which is like, why is she
Why?
sexually pursuing this man?
Why?
Let me take that back. Why is she sexually pursuing this young man, this boy?
Why?
He's 19 in the
19.
film.
Yes, and a high school senior at 19. There's so many things in this film that don't quite add up. I struggled with this. Also, just in a meta-narrative way, Jennifer Lawrence like one of the marquee actresses of the last 5 to 10 years. This is an unusual kind of like coming in from the cold type film to choose.
But this is the thing. You say 5 to 10 years, but it's been a while. Like
Hunger Games is really the Hunger Games
She's
series.
struggling. She's struggling. And that's been the sort of, starting with the Apple movie that she did last year with Brian Tyree Henry. Like, she fired her team. She was like, I was led astray. She had a bunch of bombs. You know, Darren Aronofsky's Mother, this movie where she's in space with Chris Pratt. Red Sparrow, where she does a Russian accent.
Didn't see.
She's supposed to be the movie star.
Yes.
She's supposed to be our Julia Roberts. But she bombed for a couple years in a row. And I think this movie, which is the kind of film that, as you hear all the time, they don't really make anymore, like an R-rated, big, broad comedy.
It feels like an 80s sex romp
On
without
purpose.
the sex.
On purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the sell. And that's like, you know, let's get back to our roots. This is not...
Who's our?
Our, meaning, you know, people between my age and your age, which I think Jennifer Lawrence fits somewhere
the
in
50
there.
years between me and you, yes.
And I think that, this is a comeback vehicle for her. And you just didn't, it didn't work for you as an enjoyable summer weekend watch?
I didn't dislike it. I mistrusted it, which is maybe worse. I did laugh from time to time. I do find Jennifer Lawrence to be like a compelling actress.
It's
broadly.
a charisma bomb.
Yeah,
like just like
really holds the screen really well. I really liked. I'm not remembering his name, but the kid who played the 19-year-old.
He held up across
so solid.
Yeah,
so solid. He'd be out here killing it. Take him to Times Square.
Yeah,
he'd be killing it.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. You want to solve that problem? You don't need Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah,
you
talking about the character or the actor? Both.
I don't know how old the actor is. I know the character can't get into Clandestino. I'm just saying, if you want to stand by the rock outside, you probably be doing okay.
Yeah.
It felt puerile to me.
Oh yeah, but I think by design.
Of course, but like I don't. Are we not like a tiny bit involved? Also, I looked into the writer-director, Gene
Stupnitsky,
who used to write on The Office, but also seems to have like kind of a May-December...
This is a recurring motif in the films and TV shows.
That's sort of what it seems like. And it's like, I don't know how many of those you can really get away with. Like one, maybe two, three. This is maybe number 3 along these lines.
Are you watching Jury Duty? Also his show?
I am not watching Jury Duty, but we have talked about this. I will catch up on Jury Duty.
It's not an age gap thing per se, but there is a plot line where like a woman who is sure of herself is pursuing a meek boy. This is
so it is age. So there's that, and also in No Hard Feelings there are 2 age gap things. There's the main one, the main characters, and then there's the real estate agent whose sales pitch is he had sex with the Spanish teacher
and is now married to her,
the Spanish teacher, and it's like a 40-year. Like the idea that that's like a little bit, it just feels very like The Man Show.
It's a little bit The Man Show.
You know,
look, I thought this movie was fine. It was like C+, B-. I know we're not doing ranking systems here. Look, it was a Netflix movie.
Only for snacks.
Only for snacks. It was a Netflix movie with a movie star, which I'm not mad.
I want to talk about songs.
All right, what do you got?
I thought this was like a pretty grim week
for new music,
for song releases. And so I was rifling through the offerings. Just for humor value, I do want to mention the Coi Leray song with David Guetta called Make My Day, which is just a absolute ripoff of Pump Up the Jam. And it's funny because in the Kim Petras feature in The New Yorker, David Guetta is in there trying to get Kim Petras to do like a ripoff of some French pop songs.
This is how they make your music, people.
Yeah, like it could not be more literal. It was really, really nice that Kay had that scene in that story. And you can imagine the Coi Leray studio session where David Guetta was like, Technotronic. And then like, there you go. But anyway, we're not going to do the Coi Leray, which is fine. We're talking about Juice WRLD.
This is another interpolation, right?
Yes.
Everything is an interpolation now.
So this is called Doomsday. It's Juice WRLD and Cordae. It's over an Eminem beat or a Dr. Dre beat for an Eminem song, Role Model. Close listeners of me know that I have a little bit of a soft spot for this particular era and style of hip hop. A lot of internal rhyme schemes, a lot of heavy punchlines, real bars. Forgive me, but there's part of me that really, really gets excited about this. One thing with Juice WRLD that I think was really fascinating. Juice WRLD freestyled most of his songs. Juice WRLD also known to freestyle, like just not as a songwriter, but also just rap.
Right. Classic one on what, Sway?
Sway or Westwood, I can't remember. One or the other, or probably both. Probably both. A legitimately great rapper, even if the stuff that he's best known for isn't rapping.
It's melodic.
Yeah. This and Cordae also a really good rapper, and I think really good in this context. This is, I believe, an archived song. I mean, obviously, Juice WRLD passed away, but I believe the song itself, it sounds like they recorded it
together-ish.
Sort of,
okay.
Or at least in dialogue. It's going to be on the Lyrical Lemonade album.
This is a YouTube channel turned music festival.
A YouTube channel / music video director vehicle turned festival turned label.
Right. Turned musician.
Well, sure. Or turned artist.
Right. Artist.
So I think it's going to be on the Lyrical Lemonade album. So let's listen. This is Doomsday, Juice WRLD and Cordae.
That's a subtle brag. Home team, we be making moves. Hit the huddle fast. Break the huddle, get a sack. That's a fumble on the play. Not in my house. He look like Matumbo in the face. Leave him spinning like a funnel cloud with lightning and some thunder like the Wizard of Oz. The way we carry him away. Carry him, then bury him. Barbarian. Beef with anybody, even if you vegetarian. My flow on a bowler. Your flow just need clarity. Running laps around these chaps. It's embarrassing.
I was similarly underwhelmed by the new music releases this week. So I'm going back to a track that came out about a month ago.
Great.
Glaive, As If, from the album I Care So Much That I Don't Care At All, which is coming out July 14th.
Good name.
Glaive's debut album. No Kim Petras.
Yeah. Been writing about Glaive for like 2 or 3 years at this point.
I mean, it feels like we've grown up with Glaive.
True.
Glaive, a musician who was very quickly slotted into what was being called hyperpop during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was like hyperpop, like 2.0 or
yeah,
2.5.
Yeah.
2.1.
Glaive, teenager in North Carolina during the pandemic, taught himself how to write and record music on his computer, very quickly got signed to Interscope, was supposed to be the crossover hope for this sort of burgeoning online subgenre.
Right.
And then he just started listening to like Say Anything and The Format and Brand New, and now just makes pretty straight ahead emo music.
Whom can relate?
Yeah, like this is somebody much younger than me who is making me feel
like you are young again.
Like I am young again.
Yeah.
This song features a little bit of spoken word from Timmy Chalamet. But the song
same
itself,
hairstyle, to be fair.
Yeah.
They probably go to the same hairdresser.
Yeah. Yes. Young boys with flowing locks, which
I used to have flowing locks.
And I used to as well.
Yeah. Well, someday we'll show photos.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for this Glaive album. He's really leaning into just being a rock star.
Yeah.
My friends don't fence it all. I hope they find inner peace. All life support for a week. I heard they died in their sleep. There's so much truth in the fiction. Don't know what to believe. There's so much money in addiction that I'm dying to need.
I feel like I need to be cleansed.
Yep. I've got just the thing.
Good. I'm glad to know that. What is our snack today?
Got us a very rare item. These are straight from the American South.
Okay.
A big box store gifted to me by my friend Justin, who knows that I would love nothing more than Ja Morant branded Dunkaroos.
Ja Morantaroos.
Ja Morantaroos.
I do want to say, if you have recommendations of snack foods we should try, email us.
Or send them to us.
Yeah.
This was shipped to me.
Please don't inject them with poison. Like don't do that. We will check the package.
Oh, yeah.
Make them sealed. I'll be straight up with you. I have never had a Dunkaroo. I don't really know what's going on here. What is this?
Okay, so Dunkaroos, I think this might be micro-generational. I think maybe...
The most generous thing you've ever said to me.
I think maybe you're a little too old for Dunkaroos, or they're regional, which, like, I have no idea. Do they only have Dunkaroos in the South? That seems crazy.
I truly don't know the answer. I have never.
This is a big.
Tried a Dunkaroo.
It's a big, like, packed lunch dessert thing from the 1990s and early 2000s.
So
They've
this is before,
largely
this is
disappeared.
after me. Yes,
You can find them in bodegas every now and then in New York, but they are individually packaged and they come with, well, this has Ja Morant dunking on it. Ja Morant going through it right now, suspended for the first 30 games of the NBA season for flashing a gun again on Instagram Live. We wish Ja Morant all the best. Electrifying player, future of the league. Did not get dropped by Dunkaroos yet. As far as we know. Okay, a Dunkaroo comes with two parts. Comes with the cookie and it comes with the frosting. And you do your own dunking.
Okay. Is this a normal Dunkaroo? Is this normal flavor?
So they vary. There's like ones that are just normal cookie with like, funfetti type frosting. This is chocolate cookies and double chocolate frosting. You could make a little sandwich. You could do it open faced. You can do a little dunk. It's a lot of variety.
Cookies are mid. Yeah, okay, I get the frosting.
It's tactile.
It is tactile. I'm gonna go no on this.
You not into it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go no on this.
Get yourself a healthy dose of frosting.
The cookies are too cardboard. They're too dusty. It's a dusty cookie.
It's a dusty snack.
Yeah.
It's all left over from the 90s. They just stamped Ja Morant's face on it to freshen it up.
Yeah, this I mean, it's dusty, but I'll probably finish it.
All right.
6.5.
Not bad.
What about you?
All right. I haven't had Dunkaroos in a while, but I think nostalgia will carry me through. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's basically sugary breakfast cereal with like a little bit of frosting on the side. Just, this is you just plow right through this. It barely even counts as a snack.
That I will say that it eats so easy. The size of the cookie.
Yeah.
The scoopability. It eats really easy.
I mean, it's because it's for 7-year-olds.
So someone older than me is what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and say any Dunkaroo is straight 8 out of 10, no matter what. But I do prefer the vanilla frosting.
Okay, well, I have something to look forward to. Vanilla frosted Dunkaroos. That is our show. Every Popcast ever is at nytimes.com/popcast. This show, Popcast Deluxe, is on YouTube. That is why we are sitting in chairs, and there are 3 cameras here. Check us out.
A little
on
behind-the-scenes info.
Check us out on youtube.com/nytimes. Get the merch. Get the stickers. It's the popcast.myshopify.com. Email us, popcast@nytimes.com. Get in the Discord, get in the Facebook group, tinyurl.com/popcastfacebook/popcastdiscord. Subscribe. You can subscribe to Popcast, where you get this in audio feed and also all the other Popcast original recipe. Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, apparently. We're on YouTube too. Stitcher, Deezer, who knows where. Anywhere you might be able to find audio content. Joe, you're not a human being.
You're a star.
You're a star.
Thanks, John. We'll be back next week.
Thanks to Joe. Thanks to Leslie Davis. Thanks to Karen Gans. Thanks to Pedro Rosado. Thanks to everybody who made the air conditioning work. Thanks to everybody who made the audio knobs work. We'll see you next week.